Bright QT. Every student matters.
Hello everyone. So let's start our new topic here, that is endangered labor migration from India. Now students, before this we have learnt about the changes that happened in the 19th century, in which we talked about the three types of movements or flows according to the economists that they thought was happening in this international exchange, right? So that was the flow of labor, flow of capital and flow of trade, right? So we have learned about that. Now we also saw that how colonialism was expanding, or the whole nature was changing in the late 19th century. Especially taking the example of Africa, we saw how big European powers, they came together and carved out the whole map of Africa. We understood it through the map there. Now here students, we are going to talk about the endangered labor migration. Now here you have learnt about the flow of labor. Now, can you relate this topic to this concept, that is flow of labor? Definitely yes. How students? So here we are talking about the labor migration. And when we say flow of labor, what does it signify? It signifies people migrating from one region to another in search of work or better living conditions. So we are going to understand this flow of labor under this topic. Now again you must be thinking that what do we mean by, or what does this term endangered labor means? Now have you heard this term before? Yes. Now when we were talking about the Indochina group there, right, the history of Indochina, we have come across this term, that is endangered labor. So is this term new? No students. But still we are going to understand the term again. Here endangered labor, it means the forced laborer who has to work under contract for his employer. And that happens, now since this is a contract, so it is for a specific period of time. So in this what happens students? Who are these endangered labor? So these are the forced laborers, right? They are not going on their own. Some of them they are going on their own, but mostly people are forced to work as endangered labor. Now this is a contractual work, contractual labor in which the laborer has to work under his employer for a specific period of time. And they are sent to different destinations. So here we are going to talk about the Indian endangered laborers. Okay, let us see what were their conditions and how they were being treated, right, all over the world. So in the year 1834, slavery was abolished. Now why are we talking about slavery in this part? Because we see that already in the year 1834, slavery was abolished all over, correct? And what is this slavery students? Again you have heard this term. Now slavery is a condition in which a person is treated as a property or as a slave and has to work under his master, right, according to his own wish, according to the master's will and wish. So he is bonded there. He is a bonded laborer. Same ways, when we are talking about the indentured laborers, we see that they are the bonded laborers. Why? Because they are in contract with their employer. So this is how you can relate this whole idea of slavery with that of the indentured laborers. But again, what are we seeing? We see that the Africans now who were free, because slavery has been abolished, and mostly all these slaves, they were taken from Africa region. Before this we have heard about Africa, correct? So all these free Africans, they opted not to work. Now, one option was there for them that they don't want to work, and the other option was that they asked for better living conditions if they are working, right? Now, demands were criticized by the white colonial rulers. Now, after slavery was abolished, all these white colonial rulers, they were quite distressed. Why were they distressed, students? Because who is going to work free for them, right? These slaves, they had to work without any payment, right? They had to work as they were the property of their owners. So therefore, all these white colonial rulers, they were quite distressed because they were not getting cheap labor. Therefore, these European planters, they now looked for alternative cheap labor, right? In this condition, what happened? They imported poor laborers from Portuguese island of Madeira and other parts of Europe. Now, what is happening here? Let us try to understand. In the late 19th century, with the abolition of slavery, now the free Africans, they were not willing to work. This agitated the white colonial rulers. Now they are looking for an alternative for cheap labor, and therefore they are expanding their regions as in from where they can extract these cheap labors. And suddenly they thought of our country, India. Now India became a perfect place for extracting cheap labor for recruitment. So what are they seeing here? India was also a colony for the British, right? For the white colonial rulers. So they thought that all these people who are working in India as cheap laborers, they are perfect for or fit for this recruitment as an indentured labor. And this is how they started taking these people from India to other destination places to work as the indentured laborers. Okay? Now, new system of contractual slavery that was termed as the indentured labor contract developed under the colonial administration. Now, are you understanding the whole concept here, students? Because now they were not getting more slaves from different regions of Africa, they had to look in different regions, right? And India was a perfect place for them. From here, they started this whole new system of indentured labor contract. Like I told you, it was under the contract for a certain or specific period of time under which the labor has to go off at any other destination and work under that master. Correct? So in 19th century, what was happening? Indian and Chinese workers, they went on to work on these plantations and mines as well as railway construction. Here also we are seeing some changing scenarios. So we see that these Chinese and Indian workers, now they are going to all these plantations where they were working as indentured laborers, and also they thought that they are going to live better there. But was that condition true? Let us see that. So Indian laborers were hired under contract and were promised return travel to India after 5 years of working. Now, are you understanding the term contract here, students? For example, these Indian laborers, they were hired under contract. Now, when I'm saying contract, here it means for how many years? So, they had to work for 5 years and they were even promised the return travel to our country, India, right? Now, this picture, this shows the indentured labor in different regions that were sent off. Now, let us have a look at the reasons for the arrival of these indentured laborers. So, here we will understand the conditions of the poor people who now chose an option to be an indentured laborer, right? So, the first reason for this was decline of cottage industries. So, in India, we see that students, after the coming up of British Empire and the expansion of their industries, there was a decline in the traditional industries in India. and also the cottage industries that come under this, right? And because of this, many poor people who were dependent on these industries, now they had no other option, right? They had nowhere to go, no place to work. So what are they going to do? They had to work as the indentured labor so that they can earn their living. The second reason was rise in land rents. Now what are we seeing here? That the rents of these land, it was also rising. And who was extracting this much rent here? Obviously the colonial rulers, right? So these people were quite poor and they were not able or they could not afford to pay such high rents of the land they had taken. So again they were left with no other option. They had to go and work under them, correct? The third reason here is clearance of lands for mines and plantations. So all these lands that was for mines and plantations, for this purpose, all the lands were now cleared. So therefore, all these people who were stranded, who were poor, who had no other reason to work and also who could not afford a lot of money, they became the indentured laborers. And the main destinations, here we are talking about the indentured laborers who were going off from one place to another. So the main destinations for the Indian indentured laborers, was Caribbean islands that included Trinidad, Suriname and Guyana, Fiji and Mauritius. So all these Indian indentured laborers, they were from UP, right? From different places, UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Central India. So from all these places, these people, they went off to all these off-site locations. Tamil migrants went to Ceylon and Malaya. So people from Tamil, the laborers from Tamil, they went to Ceylon and Malaya. Ceylon, the name for Sri Lanka, present day Sri Lanka, okay. Laborers were also needed for tea plantations in Assam. Now again, I'll show you through this map. So this is our country India. This is Sri Lanka. Now we see that from India to different regions, how they are going on and how they are settling in these regions. This is Guyana, right? Now they are going to some other regions of Caribbean islands as well, somewhere here, right students? This is our country. So how they were moving from all places, from one place to another, to the region of Malayas, to the region of Sri Lanka and so on, right? So here we see that shift of population from India to South Africa due to shortage of labor after the abolition of slavery in British Empire in 1834. This was the shift happening, okay? Now, many agreed to work in order to escape poverty and exploitation. Definitely many people, they thought that they are going to earn more as an indentured laborer. So therefore they decided to go on to these destinations. Tempted by the agents who allured the migrants by giving them wrong information about the nature of work, modes of travel and living conditions. Now here 2 points are important that you have to keep in mind. One reason here is to escape poverty and exploitation. The second point is the agents who were recruiting these indentured laborers. Now what are they saying? They say that these migrants, they were also given wrong information. These agents were giving wrong information about the nature of work, the arrival and also modes of travel and living condition there. So here people were thinking that they are going to live nicely there and the working condition will be well off. But was that the situation? Now this is the question that I asked earlier. Here, are you getting the answer, student? Definitely these agents, they were lying. To whom? To the migrants. Now what do you understand by the migrants? People who leave one place, their place of origin, and they are shifting to some other region and settling down there. So these were the migrants. Here we see that what happened after they arrived at their destination. Now some laborers, they escaped into the wilds, into the jungles, but if they were caught, they were punished severely. But there were others who developed a new form of individual and collective self-expression, blending different cultural forms. Now here what are we seeing? That people from India as well as China and some other places, they were coming down to these destinations, right? And all these people, they belong to different culture. So there were some indentured laborers who were going into the wilds, right? They were escaping into the wilds in order to save themselves from these colonial rulers. But again, there were some people who tried to blend different cultural forms. And how was it done? Let us see that. So the annual Muharram procession was transformed into a riotous festival called Hosei. So basically there was this annual Muharram procession, a festival that was for the Muslims, right? As you can see in the image, this was the Hosei procession. It turned into a riotous festival there, right? This is one example of the cultural blend taking place in the region. Now, chutney music that was popular in Trinidad and Guyana was another form of cultural expressions, right? So, different people following different religion, different language, all these people, they are coming together. There is this whole mixture in the cultural form and how they are trying to blend it. So, these examples shows that. Apart from this, when we are talking about the Indian indentured labor students, so there were some of the famous personalities from India who were the descendants of these indentured laborers. And one example here is that of V.S. Naipaul. Now, who is V.S. Naipaul? A famous novelist, and he has also won Nobel Prize in Literature. So imagine he is also one of the descendants of the Indian indentured laborers, the laborers who went off to different locations and they wanted their life to be better there. But that was not the condition. Basically, that was a new slavery that was introduced, where the conditions were quite different as expected. And therefore, the Indian nationalists, they fought for these Indian indentured laborers and how they were treated. And finally, in the year 1921, indentured labor was abolished, just like slavery was abolished in 1834. So coming back to our exercise section here, students, in short answer question, there is a question that says, define the term migrant. So like I told you, people leaving their region or country to settle down or move to another region. So these people who moved from their own country, their own region to some other country to settle down or to go and work, they were known as migrants, right? So this is how you have to answer this question. It is a short answer question. So 2-3 lines would be suffice in this question.